Of the three big boy airlines based in the United States, American Airlines, Delta, and United, which one has the best status program? Well, I've been a pretty high level flyer with all three of them through the years. Not just a few years ago, I had United Platinum, and I currently have both American Airlines Platinum Pro, which is their second highest published tier, and I currently have Delta Platinum, which is their second highest published tier. And so I think that I've had quite a bit of experience with all three of them. So in this video, I'm going to rank them on a number of different categories and hopefully come up with which one is the best for chasing status. If you would, hit that like button. Also subscribe to the channel. I'm starting to get a lot of subscribers, really excited about that. So if you'd help me in that way, I'd appreciate it very much. Now, when it comes to these three big boy airlines based in the United States, well, they all have 4 published tiers that you can climb to achieve what would be top status. Now, with every one of them, they're going to have an unpublished tier at the top. So you've got like Concierge Key with American Airlines, and with United, there's Global Services. But to get to those kind of milestones, a person has to really spend a lot of money on the airline. Like some say $50,000 a year just on plane tickets. So that's out of reach for most of us, even most business travelers. So I'm going to focus on the published tiers. So they all start with the low tier. With American Airlines, that starts at gold. With United and with Delta, that's at silver. Each one of them has a different metric that you have to reach to move through the tiers. So with American Airlines, it's loyalty points, and you rack those up in a lot of different ways. And with Delta, it's MQDs. With United, it's PQPs. So in all of these different metrics, they're basically just their own unique method of determining what status a person will reach. So you have to climb through. So for some of them, like for instance, with United, it's 4,000 to reach the first tier. With Delta, it's 5,000. But with American, because their entire system's different, it's 40,000. But even though that sounds a lot higher, it really is in many ways easier to get to, especially if you use credit card spend and other avenues to get there. So they're kind of apples to apples when you boil them down to what they're really about and how you reach status. So we're going to talk about those. So they start at gold for American, and then it's silver for United, silver at Delta, and then they move to platinum for American. Delta has gold, United has gold. Then the third published tier, so the second highest published tier, is going to be platinum with United and platinum with Delta. It's called Platinum Pro with American, but in essence, they're the same thing. And then when you get to the top tier with United, it's 1K. With Delta, it's Diamond. And with American Airlines, it's called Executive Platinum. And that would be the very highest level with the most perks. Now, basically, all of them, even when you reach the bottom tier, you're going to get some really good perks. For instance, you get free bags. So usually when you hit the bottom level category in each airline's program, you're going to get one free bag for you. Sometimes you'll get a free bag for a companion, and then it goes up from there. So when you hit the second tier, so if it's platinum with American or gold with Delta or United, then you're going to get two bags for yourself and also companions. And then when you hit the next tier, it's 3 bags. And so you get that perk with all of them. You also get priority boarding with all of them. So you won't board at the very beginning, but you won't board in the back of the plane with everybody else. So you're pretty much always going to have overhead bin space. That's very helpful as well. Also, almost all of them let you move up either through what Delta would call an upgrade to Comfort Plus, or with the others, you just get to re-choose your seat assignment when you check in for your flight within 24 hours to a better economy seat. And they all call them something different. On American, it's Comfort Plus, and then it's Premium Economy or Better Economy Plus, I think they call it on United. And so there's all different perks. You get sometimes priority check-in, so you get to go through a different line in security. So they all have basic perks. So we're not going to really fuss about those today. What I want to focus on is where they differ in their quality. And this comes from a person, as I said, who within the last just few years has been second level status second highest level status with all three of them. So just not long ago, last year, in fact, I had United Platinum. This year, as I do this video, I have both Platinum Pro on American and I have Platinum on Delta. So I think I'm in a good place to kind of evaluate these. Now, the only one, for all clarity, the only one that I've been the highest published tier is with American last year for a short period of time because of a status match. I was Executive Platinum. But I didn't really see a lot of difference between that and Platinum Pro. So I'm just gonna kind of go from my experience with that second highest tier level with all three of these airlines. I'm gonna examine 9 different areas where these programs all kind of try to do the same thing, but in practice, when you fly on the airlines, you get a little different experience. I'm going to look at economy seats and their upgrades. So one of the biggest deals to me about flying and having status is that I get a better economy seat, which can make a huge difference. I mean, especially if you're a tall guy like myself, to have that extra 4 inches of legroom or whatever. But not all of those kind of premier economy seats are created equal. They have different perks. So we're going to examine that. We're also going to look at service. So what's their service look like? And of course, this can vary from flight to flight. You can always have flight attendants with bad days, but I'm going to talk about in general, having flown a lot on all of these airlines domestically. What is my own experience? And that's what's going to have to be based on is what I've experienced as far as the general service you receive both in economy and when you're upgraded to first class. Then we're going to talk about first class upgrades. And I fly out of an airport that's not a hub for any of the three. So I think it's probably pretty similar. I do know that United flies fewer flights out of my airport and American flies the most, but them and Delta are pretty close. So I think I can kind of evaluate which one gives upgrades the most often. So we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to talk about their lounges. To me, if you're going to have status, you probably should be pursuing lounges through one of their co-branded cards, or maybe if you buy a lounge membership. But lounges are a pretty important part, at least to me, of the traveling experience. So I thought I'd evaluate, and I've had the card that gives me access to all 3 of their lounges. I currently have access to Delta lounges and to American lounges. I have had the United Club card in the past with full access to those. So I think I'm in a good place to evaluate that as well. Then we're going to talk about the quality of the seats. So how are the seats? How do they feel? Are they plush? Are they luxurious? Are they nice? And so that's a pretty important part of your comfort and perhaps a big reason why you choose one airline over the other. Then we're going to look at status milestones. Now, what I mean by that is when you hit a certain level, usually it's the second highest tier, and then it gets even better when you hit the highest tier. You get certain milestone rewards. So you might get regional upgrades or global upgrades. That means you can automatically upgrade your ticket to a first class ticket. You might get a statement credit on your credit card. You might get a credit towards a flight, and you sometimes get to choose those things. And all of these 3 airlines have those, but they're kind of created very differently. So we're going to look at that. And then we're going to talk about what might be one of the most important aspects of airline status, and that's how do you achieve it? And one of the most important ways to do that, or easiest ways to do that, is through card spend on one of their co-branded credit cards. So we're going to evaluate which of these have the best co-branded credit card system for earning metrics in order to advance your status with the airline. Kind of in conjunction with that, the 8th category we're going to look at is partner earnings. So some of them have ways you can earn, like through hotel bookings or through rental car bookings, things like that, where you can get a lot of extra points towards your status. And that really helps if you're chasing a higher tier of status. And the last thing we're going to look at is their alliance quality. So all of them are in an alliance with other airlines. Delta's in the Sky Team. When we look at United, they're in Star Alliance. And American is with the One World partnership. And so they have partnerships with other airlines. If you get a certain level of status on each of these, you get access to some of their partner lounges. How good are those lounges? We're going to kind of just do an evaluation of that. So as we look at this, let's dive into the very first category, and that is economy seat upgrades. Now, I put this one at the beginning because to me, this is one of the most important. I do not want to sit back in a cramped seat, especially a middle seat, and have my knees touching the seat in front of me for a 5-hour flight. So one of the biggest reasons I value status is because I get to move up to, even when I'm not upgraded to first class, I get to move to a better, more comfortable economy seat. Now, when it comes to American, their system works in the way that they give you the better economy seat. With them, it's called Comfort Plus. And those seats have a lot better leg room. I mean, it's like 4 or 5 inches more. Those seats also get better snacks. They get, if a person drinks alcohol, they get better alcoholic beverages. They get free in that. They just have, they're a pretty good product. One of the things that I think stands out about them is if you just purchase that, it's cheaper than the other 2 airlines. So that's kind of a pro. And so when I look at Americans, they allow you to move up to those seats if you're their lowest tier, which is gold, when you check in. But if you're platinum, which is their second lowest tier, kind of what we call mid-tier, then you get those seats automatically for yourself, and I think up to 8 companions. Maybe it's just 2 companions and 8 when you get Platinum Pro, but you can look that up. But you get those seats for free at booking. So you get the best seat at the second lowest tier at booking. So that to me is a really good one. So when it comes to their upgrades to a better economy seat, since you get it at a low tier, not the lowest, but just, the next one up, that's pretty easy to achieve if you're strategic about it. And those seats are pretty good. They give extra perks. They're comfortable. And I got to give them a 5 out of 5 in regard to the upgrade to a better economy seat. Now, when it comes to Delta, they do theirs a little bit differently. They have really 3 cabins instead of just 2 with some better seats back in economy. They have first class, and then they have domestically, and then they also have Comfort Plus, and then they also, if you move back, you got your regular main cabin. And Comfort Plus with them works a little differently. It's an upgrade, so you've got to be upgraded to it. It's not exactly the same. So again, if you're the lowest tier, you could get that upgrade really close to time of the flight. But to be able to just book straight into Comfort Plus, you really can't do it at all, except if you're platinum, then, or if they're diamond, they're higher level, they're going to put you in there within just a short time after your initial booking. So it's almost like you get to go straight into it. But because of that, since you can't just book right straight into it, and because it doesn't happen at that second tier, but rather at the second highest tier with them, rather than how it works with American, I have to give them a 3 out of 5. And with United, when you get to their second lowest tier, you also can move into their premium economy, or I think they call it Economy Plus or something. And in those seats, I tell you, I flew with them for years, and I was never that impressed. They don't give extra, if you drink alcohol, they don't give those beverages there for free. The seats just didn't seem as comfortable, and they just aren't that much of an upgrade. So with United, I got to say, theirs is the worst system of all. I'm going to give them just a 2 out of 5. Now we move probably to the most subjective category of all. And this will be based just upon my own experience. But like I said, I've flown dozens and dozens of flights as a status flyer with all 3 of them. And when it comes to service, there seems to be a noticeable difference. Service on American Airlines, sometimes people report pretty bad service. And I've had a few flights where my flight attendants weren't that attentive and they didn't pay much attention. But I got to say, for the most part, and this is based on dozens and dozens of flights as a status flyer, both in first class and in economy, I've had pretty good service on American. And so, subjectively, I would give them a 4 out of 5. Now, when it comes to Delta, Delta kind of lives up to their reputation. They are considered to be kind of the most premier of the airlines based in the United States. And I would say that my experience that's been pretty appropriate for what I've seen. And so with Delta, when it comes to service, I'd give them a 5 out of 5. And when it comes to United, well, United, like I said, I was with them for years and years and years, and I liked my experience with them. And sometimes I had the best flight crews, But more often than not, I'd have flight crews that were inattentive or not paying attention or just spend time on their phone or talking to each other, and you couldn't get their attention when you needed it. So with United, since it's good and bad, not as good as the other two, I'd say I'll give them a 3 out of 5 stars. Okay, the third category we're going to look at is the one that probably matters the most to me, and that is, how often do you get first class upgrades? Now, of course, in this category, it's really going to depend upon your status level, because if you're just a starting status level, which would be gold on American or silver on Delta or United, if you're just at that lowest level, you're not going to get very many anyway. So I'm just going to compare them apples to apples at the same level. So what's been my experience with upgrades? Now, remember, I do not fly out of a hub. I fly out of a kind of a regional airport that has all 3 of those airlines. I've flown out of it for years. They all have comparable amounts of flights per day. So I think it's a pretty fair comparison between them. Now, the first that we look at is American. And when it comes to American, I've had pretty good luck on getting upgrades. Now, most of the time with all of these, I'm going to be flying to a hub. So on American, that means usually flying to Dallas, Fort Worth if I'm going west, or flying to Charlotte if I'm going east. And my upgrade frequency for them is close to 50% of the time as a Platinum Pro. So I'm going to give that a 4 out of 5 because that's pretty good. I mean, 50% of the time. Now, I'm kind of splitting my travel, as I said, with Delta now. And with Delta as a Platinum flyer, it's kind of hard to evaluate this because Delta has first class, but they also have Comfort Plus, which is kind of comparable to main cabin extra for American. It's a lot better than the premium economy that you get on United. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to say because they call those upgrades. So I'm going to factor that in. But even with that, I tend to always, in fact, just the day after I book, usually I'm automatically booked into Comfort Plus, which is a lot better seat than just an economy seat. And then about 50% of the time, I'm bumped up to first class. So I think that they're just slightly better than over at American, because even when I'm not bumped up, I'm guaranteed just a little bit better seat than those main cabin extra seats. So I'm going to give Delta a solid 5 in the first class upgrade category, which finally leaves United. Now, United, when I was Platinum with them, and like I said, I was Platinum for a long time, I found that my upgrades were a little less frequent, maybe about 35 to 40% of the time. That's still pretty good. I mean, you can't complain about it much. They were actually a little bit stronger when I'd go kind of to the Caribbean or to Central America. So I'm going to give them, they're not quite as good as American and certainly not as good as Delta, but I'd say United gives about a 3 when it comes to first class upgrades. Now we're going to look at their lounges. This is our 4th category, the proprietary lounges that each of the main airlines have. So United has the United Club, American has the Admirals Club, and Delta has the Delta Sky Clubs. And with their top level credit card, all 3 of them, you get access to those. So when we look at Americans, the Admirals Clubs are very hit or miss. There are some really good ones, and there are some really, well, average, just kind of ones. So when it comes to American, you go to a couple of them in DFW, they're just outstanding, and some other places they're just so-so. So I'm going to give American, the Admirals Lounges, a 3. Now Delta, they're a tough one because frankly, Delta Sky Clubs are often as good as Centurion Lounges, close to as good as Capital One Lounges. They are very nice, and the food is very, very good. They are top notch. But I mean, you'd think that I would give them a 5 on this category, but I can't. And the reason I can't is the other 2 give you a guest when you go to their lounges. I mean, with American and with United, if you have access to those lounges, you get guests. With Delta, you get 2 passes a year. 2 passes a year, or maybe it's 4, but you get just a few passes a year with the Delta Reserve. And if you have the Centurion card or the Platinum card from American Express, you don't get any guests. You have to pay for them. So not having guests, I would love to give them a 5 because the quality is absolutely a 5. But not having any guests, I got to bump that down. So I'm going to give the Delta Sky Clubs a 4. and United. Well, United kind of is right there with their United clubs, and I had access to those for years and years and years, and even had the kind of twice a year access when I downgraded to the Explorer card, just now downgraded to the Gateway card just within the last week. And when I had access to those, I found they were just about like the Admirals clubs with American. They were very hit or miss. Some of them were very nice. Some of them were not so impressive. So I'm going to give them a 3 as well when it comes to their lounges. Our fifth category is seat quality. And this is seat quality, both looking at the economy, kind of the upgraded economy, and their first class seats. Now, when it comes to American, and this is surprising to me because when it comes to service and on time and all of that, American doesn't do very well sometimes. But I find their seats to be extremely comfortable. In fact, I think their seats, particularly their first class seats, are a little bit better and they seem a little wider. I'm a pretty tall guy at 6'2", so I like a little extra leg room. I like them to be wide and comfortable, and they just seem a little plusher in first class. And even in economy, it just seems like you just got a little bit more leg room. So when it comes to American seats, I mean, they're not the finest seats in the world. Some foreign carriers would be better. So I'm going to give them a solid 4. When it comes to Delta and United, I just don't see much difference in their seat quality. They're all right. And Comfort Plus, maybe we'd give Delta a slight edge, but not enough to really make much of a difference. They both have about the same amount of legroom as one another. So I'm going to give both Delta and United in their seat quality category a 3. Our sixth category is status milestones. Now, if you don't know what that means, when you hit certain status levels with these airlines, usually not until you hit Platinum or Diamond or Platinum or 1K or Platinum Pro or their upper level status, which is Executive Platinum. You're not going to see these until then. But these status milestones can make it just absolutely phenomenal because you get so many extras. You get things like regional upgrades or global upgrades. You get credit card credits. You get different, you can have a credit to be used for flights. You get all sorts of choices. So how do they stack up against one another? Well, when it comes to American, they're actually the worst of the 3 on this because their status milestones are kind of in between each of their status levels. So you get them like at 60,000 points, and then you get them at like 175,000 points, which is kind of in between Platinum Pro and your higher level, which is Executive Platinum. So they don't give them at the milestone. So because of that, even though they're pretty good, and you do get a few little perks that aren't worth very much at much lower levels, like you get something at 15,000, which is not even to their gold level, their first status level. But all you get there is basically 4 upgrade certificates or a little bit better boarding, something like that. But I still don't think they're as good as the others because you've got to basically earn more than your status to be able to get the good stuff. So I'm going to say with American, when it comes to status milestones, I give them a 3. Now with Delta, when you reach Platinum, you get 1 choice. And then when you reach their highest level, which is Diamond, you get 2 choices. And these choices are really solid. I mean, you get, like, I think I chose a $400 or $500 statement credit against my Delta Reserve card. I could have gotten upgrade certificates, but I get upgraded about 50% of the time anyway, so I didn't care about that. There was just a lot of choices there. Some of them, most people probably wouldn't choose, like a carbon offset or a charity giving or something like that. But there are a lot of different choices for people. And so that's pretty good. Now, United's do theirs a little differently. United has what they call plus points, and those can be spent for upgrades. So you bid for an upgrade before a flight. I've used those before. You can only get 40 of them at Platinum, which is in and of itself wouldn't give them a very good grade in this category because that's not very many. I mean, that might get you 2 upgrades and not even for your companion. So, and that's if you're lucky. So that's not very good. But the reason I'm going to tie them with Delta for the top spot on this is because when you get to 1K, you get like 280 of these things. And that is a lot of upgrades. I mean, that's a lot of plus points. So even though their system's totally different, I'm going to give the same score the highest score in this category of a 4. And the only reason I'm not giving them a 5 is because it just seems like both of them could do a little more at the Platinum, the second highest level, than they do. But I give them both a 4 for both Delta and United, because Delta has so many good choices, and United, those plus points, even though they're not that great at Platinum, boy, at 1K, they make up for it big time. So both Delta and United get a 4 for the status milestones. Our 7th category is about credit card earnings. And we're not talking about, in this video, credit card earnings on everyday spend for redeemable miles. Redeemable miles are a totally different ballgame. I mean, that's what you spend to be able to buy free tickets. But what we're talking about is earning towards status. And when it comes to that, American Airlines, they are hands down the winner without question. There's just no world in which the other two even come close. Now, Delta's trying, but still it doesn't compare. And the reason for that is every single American Airlines credit card, even the no annual fee free ones, earn the same way towards status. And you get one loyalty point for every single dollar you spend. So you could not get on an airplane. You could spend $200,000 on your card. And I know that's a lot of money, but especially business people or people who get reimbursed for work or whatever, you could spend that, never get on an airplane, and still be executive platinum. And that would be true even with the Mile Up free card. And so that is just unheard of in the game. They also have just all these other ways to earn, but their credit card earnings, the fact that their entire slate of cards gives you the same ability to earn at 1 point per dollar spent, even though their points are kind of measured differently, it's still, I did the math, and it comes out where if you spend the same amount of money with American cards, and if you factor in the annual fees, you definitely are going to get much farther than any other. So American takes the top spot with an unquestionable, in my mind, 5 in this category. Now, Delta is trying. Delta has 2 cards that earn towards status. You can use either the Delta Platinum card or the Delta Reserve. Now, they are very close, because when you spend their metric for how you get status, you have to have many less points with them than you do with loyalty points with American. And how they do it is you get, with the Reserve card, you get 1 point for every $10 that you spend. With the Platinum card, you get 1 point for every $20 that you spend. So that's just kind of the way that works out. But the reason that that works out pretty well is I did the math, and on the Reserve card, it comes very close to the earnings that you have to have with American to reach the same level of status. The problem is that there's only one card that gives you that level of earning. Not every single card in their lineup. You get the Delta Blue card, you get nothing. You get the Delta Gold card, you get nothing. You get the Delta Platinum card, it takes twice as much spend to get the same amount. So because of that, I would have given them a 4 right underneath what American was, but because only one of their cards earns well, I have to give them a 3 in this category. Now, when it comes to United, when it comes to card earnings, United really doesn't want people to earn status based upon their credit card spend. They make it very, very difficult. And so their metric is you can only get PQPs, which is their metric for earning status. And you get it based upon, I think you get 1 for every $25 spent or something like that. They change it, and they've changed it several times. But there's caps on each of the card of how much you can earn. And United just there is not any way that you could spend your way to a good status without spending an exorbitant amount of money on United cards. I mean, way more than on the other two. And they just make it harder. You have to spend way more to get a much smaller level of status. So I got to give United a 2 in this, because at least they get a 2 because you can earn some status with their cards, but they really don't want you doing that. In fact, they're the only airline that makes you fly so many segments. They want you on airplanes. The other two just don't seem to care anymore. So as far as part of, I would say, why have status if you don't fly? But as an assistance for people who do fly quite a bit to get to a better status level, they're just not the one to go with. So I give them a 2. Our 8th category is partner earnings. And this is other ways to be able to get status, like going through a rental car portal or a shopping portal or a dining portal or just other tools that are available to kind of double up or triple up your earnings in order to gain a higher level of status. Now, in this category, it is that one competitor just races far, far ahead of the others, and they're not even visible. They're so far in the background, and that is American Airlines. They have so many ways to earn loyalty points. I mean, you can get on American hotels, and I think it's called AA Advantage hotels, and there is amazing. I mean, I've gotten so many points. It used to be with Rocket Miles, and I remember some stays I was getting 10,000 points per night for a hotel that wasn't even that expensive. 10,000. And then now it's not quite as good, but there's still some that are 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 for $150 to a $200 a night motel. So that's really good. They also have their dining program. You get 5, if you eat at one of their restaurants that's in that program, you get 5 loyalty points per dollar spent. That's really good. There's just so many ways. There's shopping portal. Wow. There's some things you sign up for something, it's $100, you get 6,000 loyalty points. I mean, you can rack them up insanely. And so without question, American is far above the other two in this category, and they get a 5 when it comes to partner earnings. Now, Delta has a few ways, but theirs are kind of more promotional. So I noticed that their Delta stays, they had a promotion a little while ago where you could earn some points towards status if you stayed in a Delta stay. And I think I got maybe a few hundred on a stay that I had booked already. But for the most part, they just don't have a lot of good ways to do that. But they do have some and some promotions. So I give Delta a 2. And when it comes to United, there's not really any way to do that at all. So United gets a bottom of the barrel 1 in the category of partner earnings. The last category we look at is their alliance quality. Now, the reason this matters is if you are involved and you got a lot of points, because if you're earning a lot of status, you're also going to have a lot of points on that airline. So if you get to 200,000 to get American Executive Platinum, you're going to have at least, probably many more, but at least 200,000 American miles. That's true with Delta Sky Miles. That's true over there with United as well. So sometimes you don't want to book their metal. Sometimes you want to fly on one of their partners. So how good are their alliances? Well, when it comes to the alliances, they're all involved in different ones. American's in the One World Alliance, Delta is in the Sky Team, and United is kind of the founding partner of the Star Alliance. Now, American's there's some quality to it. I mean, you've got some pretty good partners with American and like British Airways and all those Avios airlines. You've got some good ones going to Asia. And one of the things that's really good is their overseas lounges are just some of the best of the best. But there's just not that many. You don't have as many options, especially a Star Alliance. So I'm going to give American and their participation in One World Alliance, I would say that's about a 3. Now, Delta's a part of SkyTeam, and SkyTeam's just not good. I mean, they have a decent partner in Air France, KLM, but as far as anything else, I mean, there's a few others that work all right, but their lounges aren't as good as some of the others. And I just never think of using anything for SkyTeam. And to get Delta flights with other SkyTeam miles, it still costs an absolute fortune. I mean, Delta Sky Miles are not worth very much. That's why they call them Sky Pesos often. So I've got to give SkyTeam a 1. And then we come to the category. It seems like United's been behind the pack on everything, but not here. When it comes to alliance quality, in the Star Alliance, they've got the most airlines around the world. They've got outstanding alliances around the world. I mean, with just the gold, that's the second tier from the bottom status, you get the highest level. With United, you get the highest level status in Star Alliance. That gets you into all their partner lounges when you're flying around the world. You got so many options, great options, like Turkish and Avianca, and I mean, just Air Canada. I mean, great options. So this one, without question, United leads the pack, and I give them a solid 5 when it comes to their alliance quality.
So we've looked at 9 categories. We talked about the economy seat upgrades. We talked about service. We talked about first class upgrades. We talked about the quality of their lounges. We talked about seat quality. We talked about status milestones, what you get when you reach different statuses. We talked about card earnings. We talked about partner earnings, different ways to gain points towards status. And finally, we talked about the quality of each of their alliances. And I gave them all a ranking between 1 and 5, 5 being the best. And here's how the numbers play out in the end. Now, the very first one we talked about in every category was American. And when you add it all up, and I think it's because of the ability more than anything, it's not because of on-time performance or even that their product is better in that way, or their lounges or anything of that nature. But when you look at all of those super high scores that American got when it came to their different abilities to rack up points to earn status, they came out as the number 1 in this exercise with a total of 31 points. 31 points out of a total of 45 points. Now, our Delta came in second place, and they had a total of 27 points. And that probably would have been a little better because Delta's a really, really good airline. It would have been a little bit better if their quality of their alliance was better and if they had more ability to earn status through other means. But because of that, they fell a little bit behind second place with a 27. And in last place was United. And if they didn't have the highest quality alliance, they would have been even farther behind. But they ended up with a 24 out of 45 in this exercise. So now keep in mind, this is not saying that one airline, because it won, American is the best airline. That's not what we're looking at here. No doubt, Delta has the best experience. I mean, there's just no question about that overall. We're talking about for people who have status. Which one lets you get to your status easier? Which ones let you have better perks for your status? Which one gives you more upgrades? Which has more comfortable seats? So this video is intended for people who have or plan to have status with an airline. And to answer the question, all these questions, which is easier to get there? What are you going to get when you get there? So I hope it's been helpful to you. Others of you who fly and have status with these one or all of these airlines, I'd love to hear your experience. I'd love to hear which one you think is the best and why. And if you've compared them, because I've been the same level of status with all 3 of them. And this has been my experience. Hope it's helpful to you. Leave comments in the comments, either agreement, disagreement. Let me know what you think. But we'll see you here next time.